Always a treat to have Brian Windhorst of the Mothership, ESPN senior NBA writer. Couple of random things here. Thanks for joining us, Brian. When do you think we'll see the first $100 million a year player in the NBA? How long are we out?
6, 7-ish years. The new deal, it's going to be about $75 billion. And I don't want to get into the weeds of the collective bargaining agreement, but they're not going to allow it to spike up like it did the last time this happened. They have a gradual, so it can only go up so fast. But there's going to be contracts signed this summer where the back end of it, in like 2030, 2031, there will be years they will be over 80 million. And so, yeah, when the guy actually gets paid the 100 million, it will be into the next decade. But when he actually signs for the 100 million, will be, I believe, within this decade.
And this is sustainable. Is this streaming money that's kind of, the backdrop on this? Did I lose you?
I don't know. I hope I'm not frozen. Sorry.
Oh yeah, now you're unfrozen.
So the TV money in 2000. Am I frozen?
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. You know what? Let's take a break. Then we'll come back. Why don't we see if we can reestablish there, Brian? Now he's frozen. We'll try to get him back here in a moment.
Well, he looked like he was contemplating.
I know. I thought, damn good question.
Yeah, he's just sitting there.
Once again, look at that. Wendy's stumped. But the $100 million contract, it's right around the corner, though. Because you're going to have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's going to get $81 million, I think, on the last year of his deal that he'll sign. Yeah, Paul.
You and Barkley were talking about that thing yesterday about the international thing in the All-Star game where it's the world versus USA.
Yeah.
And both of you said, well, maybe Adam Silver wouldn't want that because then it's like, USA lost, it'd be bad. Wouldn't it be the opposite effect? If the world won, maybe it'd be better for global expansion.
I just want to see something that's entertaining, interesting. I don't think if I'm the commissioner, I'd be like, I'm going to run the risk of, what happened to USA basketball? I know when it comes to the Olympics, we're still the favorite, but I wouldn't be worried about an all-star game. I would want to showcase the players from another country. I would want to elevate that, be proud of that. Let them be proud of that as well. But I wouldn't be worried that, oh my gosh, look at what has happened to USA basketball. The world is dominating us. So I don't think that's happening. Let me bring back Brian. So, Wendy, we were talking about the $100 million, and then I said, is this streaming money that's kind of elevating salaries or going to be?
Yes and no. No, I still think it's mostly, I think it's actually broadcast money. I know that sounds crazy, but if it's NBC and, ABC are primarily spending money, I mean, it's the full sort of package. You look at NBC and you look at Disney, they have all three. They have a cable network, which will be, I don't know for sure. I'm not negotiating the deal, but I guess USA. They have NBC and they have Peacock, and ESPN has ABC, ESPN networks, and ESPN Plus. And it's the deal that the NBA is making. It sounds like it's going to be about over $5 billion a year with just those two. In the current deal, it's under $3 billion a year. So it's the deal before you even get into the streaming partner, which reportedly is going to be Amazon. You're doubling the deal.
Yeah.
And so, look, in 2015-16, which was the last year of the last deal, it was, I believe, less than $1 billion a year. Or I don't know, maybe it averaged out right around. I think it was about $700 or $800 million a year that the NBA was making from its TV partners, and this new deal, I believe, will average in the neighborhood of $7 billion.
Dang.
And the games are mostly not on streaming. They're mostly going to be on over the air and over cable. So it's just the value of media rights and the competition in the industry and the value of live sports. I know that there's this big belief that it's all dying, but we keep continuing to see evidence that that's not true in live sports, and in the NBA, where there are only 15 players on the roster, the jumps there are going to be most evident. And so, Dan, we went between Michael Jordan, who was paid $30 million those 2 seasons at the end of his career, the end of his Bulls career, I should say, in like 97, 98. I think he went over $30 million twice. We didn't see another $30 million player in the NBA because they put the max contract in shortly thereafter. They had the lockout for that. There was not a $30 million a year player again for almost 20 years. Think about how that happened. And now there's dozens of $30 million a year players. Dozens. That's in some cases that's considered a bargain contract, a $30 million contract now. So we've seen a huge difference in the last decade, and that's going to continue.
The Cavaliers said goodbye to their head coach, and I was wondering what that vacancy does, if anything, to the time frame of the Lakers, if they're going to hire J.J. Redick or whoever it is. Are they connected at all, these openings?
Well, it depends on who the Lakers' top choice is. If the Lakers' top choice is indeed J.J. Redick, and I don't know that it is, I think that he's a strong candidate there. Their competition is the finals on ABC because, JJ is calling the finals on ABC. And, I would think that if he's hired as the coach of any team, it would be difficult to call the finals, and that's his job right now. So that's an interesting byproduct that we don't always get. There are other candidates. I think, James Borrego is a name that I feel like I'm the only one bringing up. James Borrego is a very accomplished coach who got a raw deal when he got, in my opinion, got a raw deal when he got fired in Charlotte, and is a strong candidate, especially for a team like Cleveland that needs offensive intervention. And I think he's a strong candidate in L.A. because, if nothing else, he's got a very good relationship, as far as I know, or he's got a relationship with Anthony Davis. So, but in theory, yes, they are competing a little bit for the same type of coach. The Cleveland situation is more tied to Donovan Mitchell than anything, because this move is at least in part related to Donovan Mitchell. And I think that'll make the Cavs potentially more aggressive. And frankly, the Cavs have demonstrated a more willingness to spend than the Lakers. So I don't know if that'll be a factor. I don't know if it'll come down to a coach deciding between the two. But the last time the Lakers were in a bidding war for head coaches, they lost them.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that'll happen, but it's interesting history to know.
Yeah, you bring up the valid point of it's not normal when you go, this guy would get the job, or they'd announce the job, or have, an introductory press conference. You're the new head coach of the Lakers, but J.J. Redick's going to be working for the next couple of weeks, which may be the holdup. And then the stories that come out, the reporting that LeBron's not involved. Why wouldn't LeBron be involved for maybe the last 2 years of his career on who's going to coach him? Like it almost seems even more important that he wants to know who's going to be here, and how do I get along with this guy?
Right. So this is one of these things where the only thing I can do as a reporter is ask the consumer for nuance. I can't guarantee the nuance. In this world of aggregation, something that I say in the next 2 minutes could be taken out, and my phone will explode. I can just beg you for nuance. Star players, typically, as you know, Dan, I'm not talking to you directly, I'm talking to your viewers and listeners. Star players typically do not make yes and no choices on coaches. It is unusual, not unheard of, but unusual for a star player to speak to a team and say, I want this individual fired today, come into the office and pound your fist, or I want this player hired. Star players make their feelings about their coaches known, not in one meeting, but in 6 months. And the executives who are with the team watch how a star player interacts with his coach for 6 months.
Okay.
And so, yes, I'm sure that there are discussions that happen, and there might even be a heads up given, hey, we're thinking about going this direction. Star players don't typically, again, you can find instances where this is not true, but typically star players do not want it on their hands that they are picking their coach, even if they help do that over the course of the season. So LeBron learned very early in his career he didn't want to get involved in that. And so he is never, as far as I know, I think maybe the one time where I think he played more of a direct role was when David Blatt was fired and Ty Lue was hired. But I honestly don't think he played a direct role in hiring of any of the coaches he's had. But then you could say, has he influenced the hiring and firing of coaches? Of course, he has. So this is the thing. It's not simple to say. So when LeBron distances himself from the hiring of J.J. Redick, it doesn't mean that he's not influencing the hire, but he's not going in there and saying, hire him. And you know what part of the influencing the hire is? You think the Lakers haven't watched the podcast or listened to the podcast? You think they haven't watched J.J. Redick on and listened to his podcast with other guests and watched how he's interacted with other players? Is J.J. Redick being hired because LeBron said hire him? Or, if he's hired, I don't know if he's going to be hired. If J.J. got hired as the coach of the Lakers, okay, would it be because of one moment? No, but would the Lakers be influenced by the many hours that they have watched and listened to his podcast and watched him out with players? Yes. So does that mean the players want him as the head coach? Maybe. Does that mean they're going in and saying, get me as head coach now? No. And I hate to be beating this up, but I mean, I run into this every day during this time. And I know as soon as people listen to this, they'll say, yeah, well, LeBron's still making the decision. and I can only tell you what I experienced in actually talking to the primary sources here. If you choose not to believe that, you can do that. It's your choice.
We're talking to Brian Windhorst, ESPN senior NBA writer. We've talked about this with the All-Star game, the international players versus the American players. And it feels like it's top-heavy with the international players, where my starting five is going to be really, really good. We were just talking, would the commissioner want to risk if the international players happen to beat players born in the United States? Like, would it be a negative at all on the NBA if you had an All-Star game with those two sides?
Well, the thing about it is an All-Star game doesn't have practice. It's not a referendum on who's better. I mean, again, this goes into nuance. Like, if the international players would beat the American players, could you easily say the international players are better? Yes, of course you could say that. Did they have a shoot around and go over 3 plays? Are they better? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard. By the way, the international teams have been regularly beating Team USA in international competitions for the last 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Team USA did not lose in any, not just the Olympics, but in any competition. They didn't lose between 2004, which was 2006, all the way up to 2019. 13 years, they didn't lose one time. And they've lost like 6 or 7, 8 times in the last few years in the international competitions. And with our frontline players, by the way. Sometimes they were our second best team, but frontline players. This summer in Paris will be the highest level, most competitive basketball competition in the history of the sport being staged in Paris. I say that without qualification. And it's very possible that Team USA, for the first time since 2004, will not win the gold, and it won't be because they're not, interested or care or well coached or whatever. They may just get beat. And when it comes to All-Star Weekend, Dan, we're headed for a major change to All-Star Weekend. I don't know if you talked about this. You probably did, but I think Roger Goodell recently went on the record saying that he wants to extend the NFL season by a week. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. That would push the Super Bowl into President's Day weekend.
Yep.
President's Day weekend is where the NBA has its All-Star game. And you could make a couple of jokes here about how the NFL has moved in on Christmas, and now they're about to potentially move in on President's Day, and both would be correct. So the NBA is going to have to make a change to its All-Star game. They can't, they can't play it on Super Bowl weekend. And they have this other event, the in-season tournament, which is now called the Emirates Cup. Please make a note of that. And I suspect that the NBA will consider merging those events into one weekend, and potentially doing away with the shenanigans of NBA Saturday night, and making it 3 nights and having the semifinals, All-Star game, and the finals all in one. And now, Now, there's obviously a ton of logistics, namely since they have named the All-Star sites for like the next 4 or 5 years. And I mean, this is my speculation from talking to people. I'm not saying this is absolutely going to happen, but I think this is something that's been discussed. That way you would potentially get this, mega event where people could actually plan to go to it, and you would actually have competition over the weekend while also having an All-Star game. And if you look at the calendar, now again, Adam Silver hasn't told me this, but I am not a fool. I can look at the calendar and you say, well, where on the calendar, without having the All-Star game in April, where on the calendar can you avoid college or NFL playoff games? And the answer is the week in between the championship weekend and the Super Bowl, that weekend where, they put the Pro Bowl, which actually is something that nobody actually takes in from the NFL. And so I speculate, okay? I'm not reporting this. I do not want to see aggregation that says report : okay? I am speculating this based on conversations that I've had that we're going to see a change to the All-Star game and possibly that. And so if you're going to make a change, like bringing the international versus U.S. in there, that would be a time where you could, make a change when you're doing that whole changeover.
The great speculator, Brian Windhorst. Wendy, have a great weekend. Thank you again for joining us.
Dan. You too.
All right. We'll take a break. Back after this.